Hi everyone, it's Joy, and I'm here to do my second of the Suite of the Month videos using the Hydrangea Hill Suite. So it is a wonderful suite, and it is in the mini catalog for January to June 2021. You can see all these wonderful samples that Stampin' Up has provided. And then we have this beautiful designer series paper and the gorgeous Mercury glass paper and the pearls and the gorgeous grape ribbon. So it is a great set, has a lot of great sayings in it, and the hydrangea is just beautiful, especially with the die cuts. So I'm going to be showing you the die cuts mostly. I didn't really do any stamping on this particular card. So the die cuts look like this, and we will be using this die cut to cut out the basic shape of the hydrangea. And then we have the detailed leaves and the detailed hydrangea blooms, and then the little separate bloom border with the hydrangea blooms. We will also be using the very soon to be retiring stitched shapes dies, these squares from the stitched shapes die. We'll be using the largest die, which is 2 5/8 inches by 2 5/8 inches. It also has circles and ovals in the same die set, but it is retiring, and it is while supplies last. So, you better get it sooner than later if you want to order it, and it will not be available after May 3rd. So if it does not run out before then. So we are going to be making a twisted easel card. So it comes up and it sets on an angle here. I hope that you can see that. So it sets on an angle when you open the card up. We're going to be using Seaside Spray, which is a retired color that I believe they might be already out of, but you could substitute other colors for this if you want to make another of this, besides your kit, for those of you who bought the suite ahead of time and got the kit in the mail. So this is an 8.5 inches by 4 1/4 inches. Scored at the 4 1/4 inch mark, which is half, and then scored again from the top right corner to the bottom left where the fold is. So you want to make sure that you do the top right down to the fold on your scoring machine or your paper trimmer with the scoring blade. So that was cut at a diagonal. I'm going to use my bone folder to get a nice sharp crease there. And then for my front piece of my card, to make it a standard size A2 card, which is the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I have cut a piece at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. which is going to get attached onto the front. So we are going to be only putting glue on this bottom right triangle here. We will not be putting any adhesive on the top triangle, just this bottom one. So that will use some of our liquid glue for that, and then set this right on top, matching up the edges and the sides, the bottom edge and the side. and then give that a really good burnish so that when we open it, it opens like so. So if you folded it in half, you could see right there where it is. So, all right, so that is our card base. And now we are going to put that aside and start working on some of the other elements. So I'm going to bring in a piece of Highland Heather, which is 3 1/4 by 4 1/2, and a piece of the Mercury Glass Designer Series paper in the Hydrangea Hill color. And on the back is this nice silver color, and there is this film that is over the back to keep it from getting scratched. It's the same kind of film that comes on the screen of your electronics when they're brand new. So peel that part off. We don't need that. And this piece is 3 inches by 4 1/4 inches. So let's use some of the Stampin' Seal and put some of that on this piece. And then layer those 2 pieces together. Oh dear. Yep, it's kind of sticky. It's not as sticky as the Seal Plus, which is good, or I wouldn't have been able to get that off of my work surface there. And line it up with your layer, your border of your layer even. So there's that. Now we are going to attach this to the front of our card. And I'm going to offset it just a little bit so that when we have our finished card, it doesn't look like a bullseye. So kind of even on the top and bottom, and then a smaller border on the left-hand side there. Is it straight? Let me put it on my grid paper and maybe I can get it straight. I think that's a little better. So I'm going to take a piece of Gorgeous Grape that I've used with that Stitch Shapes largest square die, which is the 2 5/8 by 2 5/8 inch square. And again, put some the Stampin' Seal on there. Put that kind of more towards down the bottom, but over to one side again, over closer to the left-hand side. There we go. Now I have gone ahead and die cut some pieces, and I'll bring some of those pieces in. I didn't need, the whole part for either the back of my bloom, which will go underneath this piece so that the little centers will show through in the darker color. And I didn't need all of it. So if you see, I have only done the bloom part in the Gorgeous Grape and the leaf part in the Old Olive. We are going to take some Mossy Meadow, and I put some of the adhesive sheets on the back of my cardstock before I ran it through my die cut machine so that I could have adhesive on this tiny little really delicate die here without having to use a fine tip glue pen. So peel that paper backing off. and put that right on top. The Mossy Meadow delicate die on top of the old olive leaf die. So here we go. Get this piece lined up over here. All right. See, isn't that such a pretty detail there? Now I am going to take this piece, and it has all these little individual blooms that kind of, the edges of them pop up. So in order to get that to really pop up good, I'm going to roll it over a pencil and kind of work on those blooms to kind of bring them up so that they show more dimension and they look a little more lifelike. It's pretty sturdy paper, so you know, you want to be careful not to rip, but yet it's not terribly delicate. All right. Now, this piece, you need a couple little tiny dabs. Try to get it in places where there's not petals. Little tiny dabs of glue around this. And then that will go on top of this gorgeous grape piece. And if you sort of play around with it, line it up, you know, if you don't get it exactly, then I would just trim it off with your paper snips, any that's peeking out around the edges. And then maybe work this piece some too once you've got them together. Kind of work them so that those petals are popping up. And because we want it to look, you know, kind of like it's a real hydrangea that you might see in nature. So, all right, that's pretty good. All right, so I'm going to take my paper snips and snip off this little piece here. So these two will go together like so. First, I want to attach my stem with the leaves. So getting, you know, just a thin amount of this liquid glue out of this little small pointy tip end. And you don't want too much. You don't want it too close to the edge because it'll ooze. But just enough so that it will stick. So I'm going to use my other sample for reference. And kind of coming over here like so. That's pretty close. Pretty darn close. Close is good enough. Now I want to take some dimensionals and just kind of put about 3 of them on the back here. Peel those off. Peel off the back papers. And then just attach that on top of there like so. Yep. That looks really good. You know, when you're done, you can play around with that a little more if you wish. Now, I've taken a piece of this really pretty, sheer, gorgeous grape ribbon, about 5 inches, and tying this just in a knot. I'm not going to worry about a bow. Just going to tie this in a knot. Like so. And then trim the edges at an angle. Maybe lay them on top of each other to try to get them approximately the same length. Wouldn't matter if they weren't exactly the same length. And then we just need a little glue dot to put on the back of this ribbon and stick that right there underneath the bloom. Oh, that is really pretty. It came together really fast. So now we're going to work on the inside. So now on this one, I went ahead and I drew with a pencil and figured out, you know, where to cut it so that when I stood it up, you didn't see the white. But it's also looks pretty good if you just stand it up and have the white showing. You just probably wouldn't want your any messages you wrote to show through, or maybe just a little right there you would want. So I have gone ahead and taken more of this designer series paper, this Hydrangea Hill designer series paper, and I've put a foam sheet on the back of this 3/4 inch by 4 inch strip of designer series paper before I ran it through my die cut. So, and now I am going to work on peeling just the backing off of where the blooms are. So, because I have a little tip for placement on how to make sure that those blooms get spaced exactly the same distance from each other once you put it on your project. Now the paper will only be available until the end of the January to June book, but you know, it and while supplies last, if they run out sooner, they might not do another run of the paper. So I would also buy that sooner rather than later. All right, there we go. That's on there. Now I'm going to put this on here, right about so, lining this edge up with the card base edge. Press those down, those flowers down, because we've peeled off the backing for those. Now I'm going to lift up, and the flowers stick down, but the rest of this designer series paper that we don't want does not stick. So there we've got, and the reason we want those is so we've got a little stop for our easel card so that it stands up nice and pretty. Now I wanted to define the centers, so I'm using the fine tip end of this Gorgeous Grape Stampin' Up marker, and I'm just going to do some little centers right in the middle to kind of give that just a little more definition so that they look a little bit more like flowers. And there you have it. This is the finished card. Again, if you would like to make it where the white doesn't show through when it is standing up, you just need to take a pencil and mark and trim that. So, all right, this is my number 2 card for my Suite of the Month class, and it is a beautiful card. I hope you liked it. Be sure to look at my blog at stampwithjoy.com or look me up on Facebook at facebook.com/stampwithjoynelson. And you can look for my YouTube channel and my Pinterest and my Instagram if you would like to as well. So I will leave you with that, and we'll see you next time. Bye.